Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of CKCB Features, which is for the newer listeners, which we have a lot of. That is the interview show that is part of Crimes, Killers, Cults, and Beer. So um, we do interviews. so here with us today, uh, we have Al. He is a cult survivor, and he was from a obscure cult out of West Massachusetts called the Action Lab Senior Ensemble cult, which to me sounds like something that started off as something and wound up on as something else. Am I?
Definitely 100%. Yeah, the Acting Lab Senior Ensemble, it was a theatrical cult.
Okay.
Originally, so I joined when I was 14 years old. And originally it just started out as standard like acting classes. Our leader, I guess is the best way of saying it, or we at the time perceived him as just being our acting coach. Tom Locke these days I just refer to him as a wash up. He had tried his luck out in Hollywood and New York and stuff like that. Made an appearance on MTV, was in a movie that nobody has ever heard of and you can't even find on the internet.
What was it?
Um, it was called the Strong Island Boys. You can find the trailer on YouTube, actually. Look it up. Um,
Doesn't even ring a bell.
exactly. That's how much of a wash up he was. That's how much of a failure. But
Well,
because
I,
we
I
knew.
like to I like to laugh at cult leaders at anything at all possible to laugh at him, and him being a washed up wannabe actor failure. We're good right out of the gate.
Oh, definitely. Yes, 100%. I mean, David Koresh was a washed up wannabe musician, as was Charlie Manson. So
Oh,
it's weird how the arts play a big instrumental, not, not to be humorous,
uh,
role in the, I guess one might say, establishment of cult leaders.
now you mentioned Koresh.
Hmm.
There, I saw this interview with a survivor at that. It was this guy he had joined as a musician that Koresh had basically recruited out of a bar,
Mm.
and when he was a guitar player, and when he joined, David Koresh made him surrender his guitar, and then like like a week later or something, he said, "Oh, I've got this new song I want you to check out." So he goes into the music room. Koresh picks up dude's guitar and starts playing it. Man, I
Oh.
would have grabbed that guitar and beat him over the head with it.
I would have done the exact same thing because
Like,
so after I got out of the cult, and it took me many, many years to really wake up and like smell the coffee and come to terms with the reality of all of it. I started studying cults and kind of really analyzing the elements that I went through versus other cults. If I were to describe Tom and compare him to some of the legends, as I like to put it, he had the good looks, charm, and charisma of Jim Jones, but he had the manipulative, kind of morbid, washed up persona of David Koresh.
mm.
And we know what those men did.
Well, yeah. I mean, just Jesus Christ. Hold on. Turn off Facebook. The messenger thing just went off in my head. Did you hear it through the microphone?
No, I did not.
Okay, because it went just blasted in my headphones. I'll cut this part. I'll
Okay.
cut this part out. But
Yeah, no problem.
um, it scared me. Did you see me jump? I was like, oh.
No, not much of a
It was
jump.
loud. But
Yeah.
um,
So
okay, back to what you were saying.
yeah, so that's who. So when I did my research, like that's who I compare him to. So Tom came back to his hometown of Agawam, Massachusetts, which is where I grew up. Um, his father had passed away not too long ago, so he came back to help his family kind of like cope with the grief and stuff. And I think it's evident to me too that he had, based on everything I'd seen in regards to his credibility as an actor, that he was 100% sure he had failed in the business and didn't have really much place in New York or LA. So he came back home, and what he did was he started a acting group called the Acting Lab Senior Ensemble. Now, I was a young theater nerd and stuff, very artsy. Love doing impersonations. I can do voices. I can impersonate Hannibal Lecter. I can impersonate the Joker from The Dark Knight. I can do Dirty Harry. It's an interesting gift and capability.
But
Multiple accents.
I can do a lot of accents myself.
I can do Arabic accents actually.
Might want to be careful with that one.
Oh, trust me, it took a lot of research and rehearsing to kind of like, I guess one might say, get it right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that was just for a play. That was for a play I did. So I kind of, I guess one might say, outgrew my junior high theater, and that's actually where I first met Tom. So the woman who um, taught our junior high theater club worked at Tom's family's dance studio. And he came into a few rehearsals and stuff, and she introduced us to him. And he said, "Yeah, I'm in the business. I'm an actor. I was on MTV at one point. I was in a movie and stuff." And of course, when you're 14 years old and you're meeting a guy who says celebrity status like MTV or kind of like New York, Hollywood, you're just immediately enamored. You're
Well,
drawn
yeah.
in by that success because it's what I wanted. It's what everyone wanted. We wanted to be successful. He even knew Adina Menzel personally. They had trained together, but I'll get to that later. Um, so when I kind of outgrew like junior high theater and stuff, he had posted an advertisement for the Acting Lab Senior Ensemble in the town paper, and my mom saw it and was like, "Hey, you should try for this." I'm like, "Heck yeah!" I went and saw the very first play they did. I absolutely loved it. Was hooked almost instantly and joined shortly after. And it started out as pretty much as standard acting classes, um, like I have to say like every weekend or maybe 3 times a week, etc., etc. And many of the group members were affiliated with outdoor theater groups, like not within there, but with like the local town theater and stuff like that. But as time progressed, Tom became more demanding of us, of the rehearsal. What started off as just the weekend became 5 days a week to a full week, and so on and so forth. And he had in Tom was a narcissist, but then again, all cult leaders are.
They are.
Yeah, he had an ego like the size of the sun. Um, and he kind of spit upon the local theater and was like, "This is where you belong. This is your devotion. Nobody is to be affiliated with any of the outdoor theater companies except for this one and this one alone." And we were like, "Okay," because, like I said, we were enamored by his ability and his credibility. And I mean, I didn't. I kind of, I guess one might say, just went along with it and stuff. I loved being on stage. I loved having the chance to perform in front of people, and I guess kind of was blind to some of the red flags that started showing. Primarily, I think the first big red flag that I wish I'd seen was we were rehearsing a romance kissing scene.
Well, before you get to that, the red flags. Okay, you might even kind of see them,
Mm-hmm.
but the way that these cult leaders, you're showing you're in the love bombing phase at this point, and you believe this guy. He either is who he says he was, or you believe that he is who he says that he was. So either way, you're looking up to him as a leader and everything, and as somebody who you strive to be like. So therefore, you're going to ignore those red flags. It happens in every single cult.
Yes, yes, most definitely. I ignored all of them. And I mean, now I'm much older. I'm 30 years old. I'm 100% able to identify those red flags because of how much I've educated myself and the time I've taken to study cults and reflect on my past experience and the trauma surrounding it. Like, big red flag, one of the biggest red flags was when we would rehearse. So we would rehearse in the dance studio, his mother and his sister's dance studio. We would all sit on the floor. He would sit in a chair, drinking his Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee, shaking his ice and stuff like that, and he would just talk and talk and talk, monologue endlessly. You could tell that he loved hearing the sound of his own voice, because if somebody, say their cell phone went off and stuff, he would immediately scold them and be like, "No, absolutely not." From the way I describe it is that for him, the sound of his own voice was ecstasy.
Same thing with a lot of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, yeah, it you know, they, a lot of these, the dynamics of these cults and everything, they're pretty much all the same because they all operate from the same playbook. And different catalysts. Some are religious, some are, theater based or whatever. It's not, I mean, I've heard of other, theatrical schools that turned into cults. I mean, I haven't really looked into any of them, but I knew they were out there. So when you and I first started talking, I was just like, okay, I've heard about this. Not yours specifically, but I've heard of the phenomenon. But the foundation is all the same. I would say the only one that's actually unique in its own would be Heaven's Gate.
Yes.
But still the building blocks and everything, the red flags, the controlling mechanisms of stuff, it's all there with Heaven's Gate as well. But the framework in these cults is all going to be the same or similar or whatever. But what happens to the people when they're in them, that's usually a lot different. In just about every case that I've ever heard of. I mean, I've talked with a bunch of people that were in the cult that I was raised in, Faith Assembly. I've heard different stories. I've heard the same stories, and I've also heard different stories. So it's just, it's all the same, but it's nothing alike at the same time. I just wanted to put that out there because the show does have a lot of new listeners and everything. Maybe haven't listened to a cult episode yet, other than 10 and 11, because, but we got a huge plug on a major, on one of the big dog podcasts about episode 10 and 11. So we got a lot of welcome time suck listeners.
Nice. Yeah. Yes. So that was the big first red flag that I know for a fact has stuck with everyone who is a survivor, every former member. Another red flag, and looking back on it, was we were rehearsing a romantic scene, a kiss scene, actually. And the actor who was kissing the young woman, Tom didn't like it. And he walked up to her and very kind of like held her hands and just passionately, with great passion, kissed her. Like, this is how you do it.
Awkward.
Big red flag, because one thing we know about a decent number of cults is that sexual violation is pretty common in most
commonplace,
of them. Yes, yeah. I mean, I didn't think of it anything at the time. I mean, I thought, okay, I'm learning how to act here. I'm trying to learn, like, how do I perform and show good chemistry with a woman on the stage? So pushed it to the side.
But the thing is this woman, and I'm just dissecting it a little bit just to put it in, just to put it in. So what I'm looking for, just to put it in. God damn it, I can't remember the word.
Perspective.
Yeah, okay. I'm just dissecting it just to put it in perspective, because it's like, okay, you're supposed to be. This woman is supposed to be getting comfortable with the person that she's in the scene with, not anybody else. So for him to do that, that was just him getting his rocks off.
Yeah. And I mean, so everything started to transcend into more and more and more commitment. Like I said, it went from being 2 days to 5 days to every single week. And with that, came a level of almost like the outside world didn't matter anymore. It was almost like I don't want to say we forgot about homework, but we didn't care. All that mattered was going to acting class and rehearsing with Tom and everybody else who was there. We didn't go to sporting events. We didn't go to like kind of typical high school activities and stuff. This became our lifestyle. And within time, I would just say short time per se, um, all of us were all we had. We started pushing aside any outside friends we had, pushing aside family. We hung out together. We spent time together. We ate lunch together. We were all we saw and all we know. So that family element that you see within most cults that grew at a rather alarming pace, I might add.
Isolation.
Yes, correct. Yes, huge isolation, very cut off from the outside world. And I got to say, it definitely affected our family life for many of us. Some of us, our parents let us do this because they knew we loved it. Others were kind of looking at more Tom from a darker light and perceived him as more of a con artist or like just I don't know, like there was something sketchy about him. They saw the red flags that we didn't. But of course, us being young teenagers who were so committed to the idea of becoming A-list celebrities someday, we're like, this is the only way it happens. This is how it works. This is where you go. And I've watched a lot of documentaries and seen interviews actually with child actors. And if you hear their testimonies and stories, some of it does very much resemble a cultish element. But I'd have to say, like, there's more gruesomeness within show business than there is just what I experienced.
Oh, definitely. I mean, some of these actors, actresses, even actors that
Mm-hmm.
they tell their story and everything is just like, good God, how are you still even alive? And you know, like Drew Barrymore.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um,
She was given weed at she first tried weed at the age of 10.
yeah, I mean, you know, even Corey Feldman. That guy's
He's
damaged. That guy's. I mean, it's fun. It's easy to make fun of him
mm.
right now, especially me as a guitar player. Um, but but still, it's just like that guy's been through the ringer as well. And if there's anybody that needs therapy, it's him. And there's some people that say that he's actually a cult leader.
Really, I have not heard that one because the man's been like so forgotten by the industry. If you haven't checked it out, one disclosure, well, I guess one might say documentary disclosure that I recommend you look into is it's called Dear Hollywood. It's a video podcast done by child celebrity Allison Stoner, and she talks what she refers to as the toddler to train wreck pipeline, which basically is the blueprint as to why so many child stars fail. Why did River Phoenix die when he was only like 26? How
Yeah,
is it that Lindsay Lohan ended up being this drunken piece of shit in rehab on a multiple number of occasions? Like, she really dives deep and explains the reality of it, and kind of you were we were put to act and work as if we were professionals in the business. And we didn't really, I don't want to say we didn't look at it as if we were professionals. We were thinking of ourselves as maybe training to eventually become professionals. So
right.
Tom made the environment as demanding, committed, and professional as he could based on everything he knew from his experience within the business.
Which was limited.
Yes. But being the narcissistic piece of shit he was, he thought he knew all. I remember when we would do musicals and stuff, he would almost like try coaching us. Tom was tone deaf. He couldn't sing. If he sang, he probably would shatter 1,000 pieces of glass. Or
One of those.
yes, yeah. Or when it came to just musical theater in general, Tom had 2 left feet. I don't think I ever saw the guy dance once in my lifetime. I mean, all of the choreography, we relied on the guidance from his sister, who taught at the dance studio, his mother and his sister, who also had a very intense element about them, and they knew how to instill fear in us. You did not want to get on their bad side, primarily that of his mother, I might add. They
So this was a whole family affair?
Pretty much, yeah. I'd have to say it was a family business, as one would put it.
A family cult?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah, with them at the helm. But
Wow.
whenever I speak out and explain what I went through, I always go directly to Tom, because he was, by all intensive means, the leader.
But a lot of times, you have somebody that's the leader is just a public figurehead, whereas his partner behind the scenes is the one, like Heaven's Gate, for example, and the Alamos.
Yep.
Ironically enough, the Alamos is the next CKCB episode that I'm writing. But and in both cases, ironically enough, but when um, Marshall Applewhite's wife died, he became the leader. He went from behind the scenes to being the leader. Same thing happened with the Alamos. When Susan Alamo died, Tony, who had been the behind the scenes guy, became the leader.
Yeah.
And usually when something like that happens, then that's when it goes from crazy to batshit crazy.
Yeah, I call that cult inheritance.
Yeah.
That's what I refer to it as, cult inheritance. I first learned about that with I can't remember what they are. They're a very well-known religious cult. The guy who's the leader is currently doing a life sentence. He was
Warren Jeffs.
Warren Jeffs, yes, the cult led by Warren Jeffs. How he inherited the cult, but
FLDS.
Yes, FLDS. Yes, I remember. He was on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list, alongside Bin Laden, actually.
Yep.
And he
covered him a couple years ago.
Yep, and he's still finding ways to manipulate and control his followers, even behind bars, which gives me a gut instinct that they need to really tighten down security and how much public access that man has.
Yeah.
Yes. So I never really perceived it that way or thought about it. I always looked at it as like, yeah, the three of them are in it together, doing what they do and instilling, fear definitely played a vital role, a level of, I guess one might say, fear, intimidation, and them having absolute control over us. Really, it was a lot. I think one of the things that really was most destructive was how they could tap into your raw emotions so deeply. Tom made me cry on a couple of occasions. He also was able to spark raw emotion in a few other people. For anybody who's ever seen the movie Whiplash, starring J.K. Simmons and Miles Teller, most people who I've talked to this about, typically when I describe details of Tom's level of forcing us to be better and better and better and give him more and more and more, they immediately go to the movie Whiplash and how J.K. Simmons is just like grilling and kind of controlling Miles Teller's character as a drummer.
Well, a real life example of that would be Gloria Trevi and Sergio Andrade. Gloria Trevi was a Mexican superstar, the biggest superstar that, like Latin pop superstar that Mexico's ever seen. And her producer Sergio was this, ever since it's like it went from 5 days to 7 days to hours long to all the time and everything. It just reminded me of that story. We covered that one a while back. It's a fascinating story, and obviously,
Mhm.
luckily, thankfully, your situation didn't get that bad as it did with that one. But at the same time, they could have.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All it would have taken would be for one of you guys to get noticed and picked up. That's all it would
mm,
have taken.
well, I mean, luckily, several of the survivors have actually had some really huge success. Two of them are musicians. One's a musician down in Nashville, Tennessee. The
Oh,
other, she
nice.
still lives out in Western Massachusetts. She has her own band. She just released her new album and stuff like that. One member is a probably the best dancer I've ever met. He is part of like a traveling group and does spends a lot of time in parts of Latin America and stuff. Me, I after I left the group, it took all. I kind of had to start from zero.
Right.
Um,
What I meant when I said that, let me clarify, was like somebody within the group at the time when it was going on, when he still
I
had you
see.
under his control to hit it big,
Oh
and
yeah.
then at that point it would have been like, see, this is proof. This is proof that I know what the hell I'm talking about because I made this man, this young man or this young woman into the stars, the star that they are. That's where I was going with that.
Yes, yeah, and that I think part of that was sort of Tom's aim, but the real aim was for him to get noticed and back into the spotlight. We eventually put A and B together and realized that he was using us as a tool to get noticed once again so that he could maybe have that big break he needed because he'd failed in the business before but must have still had a deep addictive appetite to the idea of fame and success. So he saw this young group of teenagers and coaching them, teaching them as if they were professionals to get back into the limelight. And he kind of, I'm not going to lie, had some luck with that. The first big kind of spark of attention we got. So as theater nerds, well, nerds is the wrong word, just like theater kids in general, we were all fans of the musical Wicked. Many of them adored Idina Menzel. And they got tickets to go see her in concert. All of them, three of them went. And Tom found out about this, and he knew Idina Menzel personally. They had trained together, and he was able to pull some strings and get them backstage. And it was front page news in the local paper and everything. A photo of them with Idina Menzel. Myself and others, we were very much mesmerized by it. We were like, "This is awesome! This is probably one of the most magical moments of your life." So that was kind of like a first stepping stone for kind of regaining a level of fame and attention. It was
Right.
like, this is what I can make us do.
Yeah, it's a lot there as far as I mean, yeah, you'll have to go back and listen to that episode. I'll tell you what episode number it is when we get done. But yeah, because it's an older one.
Will do.
But you listen to that, you'd be like, that sounds familiar,
Mm.
because it sounds familiar to me based on what you're saying, because
Yes.
it's just wow. So
So, yeah, so I brought that up when I was on. It's been described to me as like being the forbidden fruit, that thing that they dangle in front of that cult leaders tend to dangle in front of your face for you to reach for.
well, yeah,
Yeah, the way I've written about it, and just explained to people how the highs were very high, but the lows were very low. And the lows being when he found ways to really just fuck with our emotions and tap into the more sensitive side of us because we were trying to, of course, be as professional as possible. We were obedient to him and listened to him, and he was just a massive manipulator because as time progressed, some people did leave the group And whenever somebody would leave, he would always be like, they're leaving because they're not as good as you. They don't have the commitment that you have. They're not going to be as successful as you. So, kind of that circling back to that whole idea you said, love bombing and trying to boost our ego a little bit in order to keep us in the game.
Right. It's just like, that person who left, you yourself might have thought, hey, that guy's really good. It sucks that we lost him. And then he
Mm,
comes along, oh, that guy sucked. you
yeah.
know, um,
Yes. Yeah.
it's just like when, religious cult leaders,
Mm.
like they tell their people that, if you leave our church, you're
Mm.
condemning your soul to hell.
Yes, I have heard that one repeated about 1,000 times by every single interview with notorious religious cult leaders that I have seen. They always use hell and Satan's realm as a way to make you look as if you are turning yourself from angel to demon.
Yep.
Yeah.
And by that point, if you're at the point where you're thinking about leaving,
Mm,
you hear that stuff, you're already brainwashed, but just like,
yes.
okay, I just need to get away from this and everything. I miss my family, I miss my
Mm.
friends, I miss being able to have a good job. you
And
know
we did miss like having outside friends and having family. I mean, I respect and like adored all the people I was with. They were great people, amazing, and they were by my side through probably one of the toughest periods of my life. I'm epileptic.
Mm.
I'm going on knock on wood, almost 9 years seizure free. But
Oh,
at
that's
that
good.
time, yes. But at that time, it was god awful. It was not really well controlled. I was taking a ton of different medications, I guess one might say experimenting with, as a means to try and keep it under control. So there were moments when I guess maybe my mentality and like the epilepsy couldn't tolerate the stress and anxiety that Tom was forcing upon me and forcing upon everyone else, and I would have a seizure in the middle of rehearsal, and then everybody's got to make the panic call. Yep, Al's having a seizure, like gotta get his mom, gotta take care of him. So I will always like respect them and love them for taking care of me. That's probably the one of very few things that I per se owe Tom, is that he actually had the kind common courtesy to consider my health. However, in time that has faded drastically. Um, so there was that part of it, and I do believe now that maybe the level of stress and anxiety that he, of course, gave us is what contributed to this hype in seizure activity. That it wasn't maybe just that wasn't academic stress. That it wasn't like, I mean, I came from a very turbulent family. So, like, my father was an alcoholic throughout a majority of my youth, and that kind of affected my mother, like, through anxiety and stuff like that. Nothing I ever did was good enough for my father. He always admired my sister more than me. So, being in that group felt like having the family that I didn't have at home. There, I felt loved. I felt companionship. I felt comforted. I felt cared for. And when I was home with my family, there was just tension in the air, like all the time. Like I needed to get out.
So it sounds to me like, oh, well, at this point, where you're at right now in the timeline,
Mm.
where, how long had you been in it at this point in the timeline where you're at?
Things started to really start to shake up by the time when I was like 15.
Oh, wow. So you joined real young. What,
Yeah,
12?
yeah, yeah. I was 14 years old. I was like
Oh, so
14 years old.
I mean, the love bombing can go on for, like it can go on for it's going to go as long as it needs to, until the cult leader has his hand firmly around your throat, and
Yes.
making you say, please, sir, I want some more.
Mm, Yeah.
And then the love bombing stops, and then that's when the abuse starts. So,
Yeah. And the abuse was pure brutality. Very difficult to endure, but I would always shake it off. And I feel really stupid thinking about that now, that I had the audacity within me to shove abuse aside rather than kind of maybe stand up for myself. But I'm young, I'm 14, 15 years old.
right.
I was kind of timid and stuff like that. So there was always that. So I guess I didn't really have it in me, and I wanted fame and success so much that I was that I was able to shove any rebellious kind of attitude I had towards Tom and just deal with his shit. Whether it was belittling me, whether it was making me cry, whether it was tapping into raw emotions and things of that nature, I just put up with the abuse.
So when he's abusing you, I mean, is it physical at
Verbal,
all? It's all verbal.
all verbal, yeah.
I mean, with everybody, it was just all verbal,
Mm-hmm.
or
Definitely with everyone. It was verbal. I mean, I will admit he definitely had his favorites. He had
okay,
his favorites within the group, and I, of course, never was one of them. So I think if you weren't really one of his favorites, one of those, it's almost like he had his eyes on the prize. Like he could weasel out who's actually going to be successful and who is doomed to fail. Like in my master plan, whatever his master plan was, which ultimately was just to get back into the spotlight and
right.
reclaim whatever fame he thought he had but had lost.
So how is he? It seems to me like how is he generating income? Are your parents paying for you guys
Yes,
to
yes, we
be
were.
in?
Yes, we were paying. Yes, we were paying.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's okay. I was just wondering that. It's just like, okay, this guy's doing this like full time. How the hell is he making? Well, do you know how much your parents were paying?
I think it was like 60 something bucks a month. I can't remember the exact number. There's some details that I've tried to shove aside, as well there are others that are very much deep stuck inside my head. Primarily those that kind of like the more traumatic stuff that just kind of would pave the road for my life getting to where it is now, and me finally kind of coming out and having the willingness to open up and stuff. I'm actually by far the most vocal member of the group who's spoken out. A few have kind of let the truth out, and that's what led me to Discovery.
Yeah.
That was what led me to Discovery. After the group ended, I because they were all I knew, all I had, and that was my life.
Oh,
And
and
I'm
for
not.
for people who might not be versed on cult terminology, discovery is when you wake up and say, "Holy shit, I was in a cult," and then you start looking into researching and stuff like that. That's discovery. That's the discovery mode.
And what's interesting actually about Discovery Mode is that we were being called a cult before the group even broke up. That was something that was a rumor, a term that spread throughout wildfire in our town. It was a small town too. Agawam's like not a place where you can, I guess one might say, easily hide. People
And
know people, and it
I'd
spread like.
never heard. I'd never heard of it, and I'm a truck driver, and I.
Okay, this is how you know. You know, you've heard of Six Flags New England, right?
Yeah.
That's in Agawam, Massachusetts,
Oh,
right next door to Springfield.
kind of like where where I grew up. Merritt Island, Florida.
Mm.
What's that near? It's near Cocoa Beach. Oh, is that
And
Disney World's near there? No.
got your
Um.
geography mixed up.
Okay. Where Disney World is in the middle of the state. Um. Oh, what's Merritt Island? It's where they launched the space shuttle from.
Mm.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So and one thing that and this was near the end when was they started calling us a cult. People at school kind of started referring to us as a cult. Some people in town called us a cult behind our backs. There was a lot of like murmurs and whispers behind the scenes. Um, I'd have to say, and we I guess we're in a bit of a denial phase. We weren't gonna own up, and we didn't. I don't know. Maybe some of us just didn't know as much about cults as we do now, but we didn't want to believe it. I know I didn't. I 100% didn't want to believe it. I'm like, no, it's just an acting class. I'm just part of an acting group. But people kept feeding that to us. They kept calling us a cult and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, we also think it may have been, I think, or at least maybe this is the way Tom kind of uh, unraveled it in our heads, was it was kind of backfire for the success we were starting to have versus what others did not. Because he dangled, like I said, he dangled that forbidden fruit. First, it was Adina Menzel. Then he was able to get us booked to perform in Disney World. We flew down to Orlando, Florida, spent a
Which
week.
is in the middle of the state.
We spent a week at one of the finest top-notch resorts they had, um, and we performed a 20-minute version of Grease in downtown Disney. Like I said, the highs were very high, and
Oh, that
I remember that trip so well. It was amazing.
I
One
hate that.
thing,
I hate that movie, but I know what types of productions you're talking about, and if that's your thing, I can yeah that's like a milestone. That's like that's like step one of making it big. You get there, it's just like okay,
oh
it's up, it's downhill from here.
yeah.
You know,
Well, actually, it went a bit more uphill from there. Believe it or not, one thing I remember most about that trip that was kind of magical. I mean, it's Disney World. Was we were in the middle of Magic Kingdom, and they started playing the song "Grease Lightning," and almost on instinct, we all started doing the dance routine we had rehearsed vigorously to that song and did it in the middle, just right there in the middle. Got a massive standing ovation from so many people. It was a real hype.
that's awesome.
But I mean the being able to just say, "Hey, I performed in downtown Disney live in front of like a massive crowd of people," is something that's big. And that I think was a big jump for him as to on his like getting back to where he wanted to be. Because next thing you know, he was able to get us booked for the Radio City Christmas Spectacular.
New York,
Yep, New York City, Manhattan.
nice.
I don't know exactly how familiar you are with the Radio City Christmas Spectacular, but one member
Well,
heard.
I knew it was New York.
Yeah. Well, one of the group members actually her dream. She aspired to be a Radio City Rockette,
Oh,
dancing on that stage.
nice.
So that was a huge win for her. That was a real dream come true, and it was, like I said, mesmerizing. We're standing there on stage, singing, and we're the opening act. The next people who are going to go out are the Radio City Rockettes and the entire ensemble that perform this praised nationwide show for millions of viewers in New York, and better yet on TV. So that was a huge win for us.
Oh, hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so okay, you have a string of successes, which makes
Yes,
it's like like I was saying before, it's like okay, this guy he might be a prick, but
mm-hmm.
he does know what he's talking about. He does know what he's doing.
Definitely, 100%. 100%. And then, of course, he finally gets us the biggest win. TV show. He was able to get some recognition, or maybe even just contact him, somebody he still had ties with, out at MTV, and they were going to make a reality show about us. So,
About your group specifically?
yes, our group
Wow,
specifically,
that's
yeah.
cool.
That was kind of something that really frustrated my parents, truth be told, because I don't want to say that they were against me having dreams per se. Sometimes I look at it that way, I really do. But I think they just were, I don't know, maybe too overprotective and didn't feel I was ready for any of this. I remember my mom saying, "What's next? The world tour or something like that?" And Tom actually used that against us on one occasion when he was monologuing. Um,
Oh, so he brought up your parents' concerns in front of the
Correct.
entire group and
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
fingered pointed,
Basically pointing the finger at me. Yeah. He wasn't afraid to
damn.
he wasn't afraid to call people out. Not under any circumstances
Yeah, but that
whatsoever.
wasn't you. That wasn't you. That was your parents, and you went to him in confidence to say, "Hey, what do I do?" And he's just like, "Hey, check out what this, what this
Yeah.
guy's parents said.
Yep.
They're trying to break us up and blah blah blah."
Yeah. And I think he got that. He was starting to get that vibe from a lot of parents of group members who were starting to really, really at that point see how much of like a shithead he was. Were really aware of these red flags and just wanted us out uh, before anything maybe got to a point where they had no control over it. Because obviously they're your parents, and your parents are supposed to love you and care about you, and they wanted, I guess, in their eyes, they wanted to protect us. But we, but yeah, so anywho, my parents, I guess maybe just I don't want. They signed whatever contract it was, and we spent, I'd have to say, maybe two something weeks. Everywhere we went, camera crew from MTV was following us. They were filming us in the studio. They were filming us at school. Some people who had graduated high school at that point were going to community college, were getting filmed when they were doing like some stage performances at clubs, just their own shows, their own independent shows and stuff. And I don't exactly know how others felt about it. I mean, I'm not camera shy under any circumstances, but I always got this sense of this is a lot,
Right.
because you still want to have that a certain element of privacy and stuff. And when you have people following you everywhere you go, despite not being camera shy under any circumstances, you do get an overwhelming sense, a certain level of pressure, almost like I had to be the most professional person I could be every single moment of every single day, as long as those cameras were around me.
Well, I mean, I can if that was the absolute worst of it, I could kind of understand where he's coming from, because of the fact that it's just like, you know you screw up one tiny little thing, and that's the scene that they're going to use that's going to go on TV. So I mean, I get that,
Mm.
but from a production standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
but the as far going back to the verbal abuse and whatnot that he was doing, is he like, if you screw up on a bit, or on a routine or whatever, is he lambasting you for that?
Yep.
And also, is he making things up? Because,
Yep.
like, okay, give us an example of that. I mean,
Oh, I got the perfect
it,
example because it's one of the ones that sticks with me more than anything else.
okay.
So we did a play called The Wedding Play where I played the husband. One thing that I really didn't appreciate about Tom was that he was always willing to cast me to play somebody who was much, much older than I actually was. I was actually the youngest guy in the group, yet he would cast me to play characters that were the mundane roles and well beyond my age range. And I don't know if it's because sometimes he said, "Oh, you don't have the takes yet to take on more advanced roles, etc., etc." Or maybe he took advantage of my appearance, because when I was 16 years old, I could pass for 18. As long as I grow this beard out, I can look a lot older than I
Right.
actually am. Um, so maybe he took advantage of that. But always his constant excuse was like, "You're just not good enough," or "You can get there," and I'd try harder and harder to please him, but it was never enough. And we did the wedding play, and I'm playing the father. And there was some fucking and shitting and cursing bad language in that play, which I'm not opposed to now. I mean, I'm a writer. I do screenwriting, so
Right.
I like to put some effing and jeffing in there from time to time. But what we would do is I was supposed to mouth the word fuck, while the actress who was playing my wife in the background was just like screaming and hollering my name, but it accidentally slipped out. The F accent, the fuck accidentally slipped out. It wasn't deliberate. It wasn't meant to be under any circumstances.
And it wasn't even that big of a deal.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just like, okay, so instead of going, and for those of you listening on audio only, I just mouth the word fuck. But so instead of it being that, it's just fuck.
Yeah. But he made a huge deal out of it and really chastised me and really hurt me. Like that was one of those moments where he really tapped into my raw emotions and just made me cry. And what happened? And what happened was, he said, "Oh, you did that to impress friends of yours in the audience from school." I'm thinking to myself, what fucking
Yeah,
friends are
what
you talking
friends?
about? Like the people, because we were responsible for selling tickets, us, and he charged a pretty shitty price too. He would charge $20. So whenever I tried to sell tickets, nobody bought them. The only people who came under any circumstances is my family. Nobody outside of them
Jeez.
came. Yeah. So I'm like,
20
what?
bucks. You're 16 years old asking classmates who you don't aren't even allowed to associate with outside of school, "Hey, here, give me 20 bucks and come see me put on this performance." I mean, when I was 17, I put on, there's a historic playhouse
Mm-hmm.
in downtown Cocoa Village, in
Yeah.
which is across the river from Merritt Island, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
But I rented that out at 17 years old, um, with my my dad signed the contracts and all that stuff, but I did all the work and everything. It was my band and two others.
Okay.
We charged $5 a ticket, $5 a ticket, and we packed that place. We sold it out. and and it's just, but if I had been charged, like I said, I was 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
If I had charged $20 for that, it might have been a hundred people there, if that.
Yeah, but he was definitely trying to rake in some dough, and he just used that against me vigorously. And I always just keep standing up for myself. And I'm like, I have no friends outside. I have nobody to impress. I'm not trying to look cool or anything. And luckily, many of a ginormous number of the group members defended me and stood up for me, and they did it in front of him, but also did it. What the heck? Oh, no, my apologies. My camera got a little faulty there, and they.
Don't worry about it.
Mhm.
It'll pick up on this end. It'll be
Yeah.
fine.
Oh yeah. And they even did it in front of him, which was very noble of them. I think that was a very noble thing of them to stick up to him, to garner up the courage together, and let him know, hey, give him a break. He's not lying. He's not trying to look cool, or wasn't. It just happened, and that kind of got him to hush up a bit. But to know that he used that against me and just was willing to create bullshit drama says a lot about who he was as an individual.
Yeah, I mean, um, and that's just yeah, that's what from what you're telling me, that just the mind control aspect of it, the
Mm.
power that he had all over you, the isolation and all that stuff. It seemed like isolation and brainwashing was his strong point. And he did that by verbally abusing you, belittling you, humiliating you, and stuff like that. I mean, there nothing physical, nothing sexual, or anything like.
Not to me.
But you know of things
Oh, most definitely. Um,
allegedly. You got to throw. You
I
got to
have
throw.
the. I've got the testimonies actually.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah. Yes. Abuse spanned beyond love bombing and making young people cry. It. I didn't. So it first started. Apparently, he was already when the group was very very fresh. He was in a relationship with one of the older women in the group. She was of age and stuff like that, but Tom was like 30 and stuff like that. And I thought, oh, it's a little weird. I mean, maybe you should be dating within your own age range and stuff like
What, she was
that.
like 18 or something?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. When I always telling
Legally,
this.
legally, legally, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yep, legally there's nothing wrong with it, but I think from the perspective of a 14-year-old guy like myself at the time, it was pretty weird. I
I
didn't know
get
a
it.
lot of details about their relationship. I didn't. But I definitely found it a little odd. So that was kind of like the start. When near the time before the group ultimately ended, he behind closed doors because he tried very hard to hide it. He developed a relationship with another group member who was a minor. She
Mm.
was only 17 years old. And so I had heard about it. I didn't know what to believe of it. I truly didn't. I mean, I myself was only like 17 years old at the time, about to turn 18. So still, I'm not saying like I had a weak-minded pea brain, but I didn't know how to process it properly. I truly did
Right.
not. And he said, yeah, her parents are totally fine with it. They're okay with it. Such fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
It's evident to me that he was 100% lying through his teeth about that. I don't think that parents, unless they are, I guess, inconsiderate would be the word, would tolerate you dating their minor daughter when you're almost twice her age.
Well, they didn't. They probably didn't know, or did they?
I really don't know. I've never even heard the full details surrounding that portion of it because I was heavily locked in the dark. People who were his favorites, they knew the juicy details. They knew it a lot more than me. People who were pushed to the sidelines, like myself, were just left to be the spectators and kind of sit back and watch. And I think also because it's become very crystal clear to me that he is a coward, and all he's going to do for the rest of his life is hide. And he showed the true signs of that early on, that he was doing all he could to hide that this relationship he was having with an underage woman. Um, so yeah, but I didn't know what to make of it at the time. I didn't want to believe the idea that I'm being called a cult member and stuff like that. Didn't want to. So
Now, who was
when
who was? I mean, you know, you said that around school and everything. Everybody was saying, "Hey, you're in a cult." Blah blah blah. Hey, look at the cultist and everything.
hmm,
But I mean, were your parents in that mindset as well?
if they were, they kept their mouth shut.
Okay.
Yeah, if they were, they kept their mouths shut about it 100%. And they eventually pulled me out after our final major performance, the one at Radio City. So that pilot that they filmed for MTV, I never had the chance to see it. It was not greenlit. It failed, and after that, the group came to an end. There's a lot that is fabricated into the exact reasons as to why it came to an end. Uh, Part of it, I think, the two biggest elements are a the pilot was not greenlit, so Tom's big chance at having his major comeback, his chance to get back into stardom, whatever stardom he thought he had failed.
The blow to his
And
ego.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like a big, yeah, torpedoed his ego, crushed it. And B, I found this out many, many years down the line. People within the group had learned about this relationship that he was trying so desperately to hide. So he was definitely aware that people within the group knew about it.
Right.
So I think for him it was, I got to end this before I get my ass in trouble. And it ended. Group complete. I mean, we had all grown up and stuff like that. Most of us were prepping to go to college anyway. Those who some were in community college, but the rest of us were prepping stuff.
Right.
And that's, I feel, kind of where a lot of the hardship kicked in. Like for me, the way I put it is the end was just the beginning, because for for that portion of my life, the only friends I knew, the only companions I had, the closest thing to family I had was that group and that group alone.
Right.
So when I went off to college, I had to start from square one completely. I
And
had
you're also like um you're nervous. You don't know you've got to find out what you're because you've spent like what like 6 7 years with just this one group of people and literally nobody else, not even family, no structure other than what this tyrant was dealing down. And now all of a sudden you're on your own in college.
mhm.
That had to have been like insane. That had to have been terrifying.
I tried to make it work, but I figure I now know that I wasn't really able to. It was very difficult because I didn't know how. I had to learn how to make friends and how to connect with people. I knew nothing about dating, uh, so that was just an absolute mystery to me. Um, I really had to start my life completely from scratch and just learn skills that you'd expect to learn and develop or have well developed by the time you're 16, 17 years old. I'm 18 years old. I know very little about making friends and being a social person. I don't have any dating experience underneath my belt. So, how am I supposed to kind of win over a girl? How am I supposed to ask her out or something like that? And I don't have those guiding principles. And it just, and no longer, because I still deeply clung on to the group so deeply and tried to maintain relationships with people within the group. To the point where, for me, without them, I had pretty much nothing, and it definitely
Yeah.
triggered a lot of depression within me.
And
Depression
you're
and
you're
stress.
awkward. You're awkward. You probably and I'm speaking from experience. You probably were awkward. You probably had a hard time meeting people. And if you did try to talk to somebody new,
Hmm.
you were probably like so shy and so nervous that people just kind of looked at you like, "Hey, just go over there."
Yeah,
And I mean, I had that happen to me in high school and everything, and it wasn't really. I mean, in high school, I got into, I got in with this group of, you know, teenagers who were also aspiring musicians,
Mm-hmm.
but Christian. And I had just come out of a crumbling cult, but
Mm.
I hadn't realized at that point that it was a cult.
Mm.
So I was just like, okay, well, I was raised in church and blah 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 and
Yeah.
everything, so let's go. So it's like my first band was a Christian band. That band that I rented out the Cocoa Village Playhouse with. I was at that point I was like about 2.5 years out of the cult at that point. But
For me, I feel like it takes a lot of slaps in the face for us to finally really wake up and come to terms with the reality of what we went through, and that's what I had to deal with. I had to get a lot of slaps in the face in
it
order
didn't
to
take.
just wake
I,
up. And,
I didn't get there until I was like 25, 26, 27, somewhere in there, before I really figured out who I was. And actually, I'm
I
going to say it was around 27, which is actually when I became a lead singer in a band,
mm, I did.
as opposed to just a guitar player. Because a lead singer, you're the guy. You're the guy everybody's looking at, and it was awkward. I did my first show as lead singer at 19, and that was
Mm,
horrible. And I didn't really do it again until I was like 27.
I
Uh,
didn't get the major wake up call until I was 28 years old.
oh wow! So
So so basically
you're still a discovery.
it took 11 years for me to get the ultimate punch in the face. Like that perfect Muhammad Ali knockout sucker punch. Because
Yeah.
what happened was I stumbled across an article that one of the members had written. And she talked about how Tom was having relationships with these younger women and dating them and
So
stuff.
there was more than just a 17-year-old. Well,
Uh,
we can't count. I
there were
don't count.
just there were only two. There were
I
only
don't count the 18-year-old because that's
Yeah.
legal and
Yes, just the
whatever floats your boat.
but just disclosing the fact that he was dating his students.
Right.
He had the willingness to date his students. And that was when I like opened my eyes a bit and
Oh
was like,
yeah, you're
"Whoa."
right. The student aspect, dating the student aspect. Okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down. Took me a minute, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I got it.
Yeah. So there was that. So I was like, "Whoa." And it put me on a track of rediscovery and reconnection. And I started kind of um, I started reconnecting with former group members, and they shared, like, one of them, the one who was of age, who he had had a relationship with. She shared an article that she had written, and I
Oh
read,
wow.
and I was like, "Whoa!" Because her writing abilities are superb. This is very intense, and the thing is, and another one of the ones who is I one of the girls who's she's now a very successful musician. She went on a podcast uh, called "Something Was Wrong." I don't know if you've heard about it. It's very
I've
big.
seen that one come up in
She was on
scrolling. I
it.
haven't listened to it.
She was on it. I listened to the episode she was on, and she disclosed a lot of information because she was one of the first people who knew about these secret relationships he was having and kept it locked up and stuff. She was very traumatically affected by all of it. And I listened to her podcast and everything. And after having read the articles and listening to the podcast episode, it was like a Pandora's box exploded in front of my face, and so many emotions were flooding through my brain. I had rage, I had fear, I had surprise, I had hatred, I had just that thing where you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Because here's the kicker: I was Tom's scapegoat.
Oh boy. Buckle up, people. Here we go.
Oh,
I thought we were wrapping up, but we're not.
no. This is where it gets fun. I was his scapegoat. Yeah.
No, and I'm not, you know, no, your story is fascinating to me. It has been, but it's just like, oh, but wait, there's more.
Oh yeah, I get it. Yeah. Yes, yeah. I'm not exactly sure how many cults because my knowledge is limited. It's not as extensive and broad as yours is. But I don't know how many kind of cult leaders have used scapegoats throughout their time as a leader, etc., etc. But so Tom eventually fell in love with a woman who was one of his students when he was teaching in New York.
Okay,
Um,
by the way, I don't know right off the top of my head. I don't know of any fallen cult leaders who scapegoated.
mm,
I, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that they're out there. I'm just, I've researched so many cults, it's not even funny.
mm.
But, but I'm sure
So
they're
have
out
I.
there. But what usually happens is, like you were saying, an inherited cult, like you were saying
Mhm,
earlier, and then, that it crumble, or the cult leader dies, or it crumbles around him and everything.
mhm,
The cult leader goes away, and this new guy takes over, and everything changes everything. But it changes it on the surface, but it's usually all the same. It's still the
mhm,
same shit, and sometimes in a lot of cases it gets even worse.
mhm.
And but as far as like the cult leader just like pointing the finger at somebody else, I can't think of any off the top of my head. But like I said, I know they're out there.
Yeah. He scapegoated me in a very interesting way. So he eventually fell in love and got married to a woman who was one of his students when he, as I like to put it, fled town and was teaching in, I think, New York.
Okay, what did he say when he took off, when he bolted? What did he tell the group, or were you already out of it at that
I was
point?
already out of it at that point,
Oh, okay.
but enough information had begun to surface in town and everything to the point where it was very evident to him that he needed to skip town because I don't want to say he was a wanted man per se, but he was a very hated individual. Like the name Tom Locke resonates within Agawam, Massachusetts. Even to this day,
Well, it
he
has an
went to
ominous tone to it, just saying it.
yes,
Even if I
yes.
didn't know him, you come to me and just say, "I know this guy named Tom Locke." I'm going to be like,
Mhm.
What's
Yeah.
his deal?"
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So it people in town know who he is. People in town know who he is. He is a hated man, and he is kind of very much in a position where I don't think he'll ever be able to go back. But he kind of
Hmm.
he bolted it. Went and got some sort of theatrical teaching position in New York, and married, got engaged, and now married to a woman who was one of his students. And I crossed paths with Tom at a local restaurant in town a couple of years after the group had broken up. I, at that point, of course, did not know any of the details and in the information that I know now and stuff. So I guess one might say I still sort of believed in Tom. I still had some level of faith in him, even though I shouldn't have. And he said, because Tom's a very handsome, charming, charismatic,
Charismatic.
intriguing guy.
we
Like
we
good
both
looking.
said we both said charismatic at the same time.
Yes, yeah. Very, very, very good looking fellow. Like he had a very suave smile that always kind of said like, "Hey, I'm cool." Kind of like that James Dean look. Miss
Yeah,
you, babe. My wife.
you need to
yeah.
you need
So,
to
and I kind of I nudged at him on numerous occasions throughout all the years that I knew him. That hey, why aren't you dating? You should date someone. You should maybe find a woman, like get married, start a family. And I nudged that at him throughout the entirety of the period that I was a member. And when I met him, and at the time she was his fiance, now his wife, he said to me, Al, if you hadn't nagged me all those years, I wouldn't have met my wife. And he even said the same thing to another member who had been my
Wait,
best
hold
friend.
on. Say that again. If I hadn't had you all these years, I never would have met my
If
wife.
you hadn't nagged to me all these years,
Oh,
I would have never met my wife.
oh, your wife.
Yes, yeah, his wife. Like, yeah, that. Those were his words. And he said the same
That
thing.
doesn't even make any sense.
Basically, he owes his marriage to me.
Oh, well,
Yep. That's the way he made it out. That's the way through the way he explained it, because he said pretty much the same thing to a former group member who was my best friend for roughly 14 years until we had a falling out. That
this is post cult love bombing.
Yeah, yeah, yep, 100%. That I owe my marriage, I owe my love to Al. Yeah, if it was not for him having nagged me the way he did, I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have fallen in love.
You didn't bring his future wife into the group.
But but in an essence, feels that way. Yeah, loved bombing me and using me basically as a scapegoat. He made me feel like, and so when I learned about the atrocious, heinous things he had did, how he was having these dark sexual relationships behind the scenes and stuff, I took full accountability. I took full blame. I blamed myself based on him kind of, as you said, post cult love bombing me, the scapegoat stage that he put me through. I took full blame. So that's why,
So he knew what he was doing.
oh, 100%. He knew what
Okay,
he was
because
doing.
I was sitting there trying to piece it together. It's just like, okay, well, it's weird, but it doesn't sound all that bad. But no, he's at this point he knew that you had been speaking out against him, or at least not in public, but to other former members and everything. He knew this, so he's just like basically, okay, well, my she was 16 when she was here. She's now my wife, and I owe it all to you, Bucko.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Wow, damn,
yeah,
that's next level.
that was a real bullet to the head. It was a real bullet to the
I
head.
mean, did I nail it?
Kind of. Yeah. Yeah, he knew what he was doing. And so I felt immense guilt. I think out of all the emotions that unraveled when that Pandora's box opened up, guilt and a level of self-hatred were the two biggest emotions that were pulsating through my brain. And I just went out kind of on I guess the best way to put it is a mission, and started reaching out to members, some of whom hadn't heard from me in a while, actually, and just apologizing profusely at an alarming level. And they were like, whoa, we didn't even know you were in the deck that much. We're like, and they all said the same thing. You are not to blame. This
No.
is not your fault under any circumstances. They kept saying that to me. And they told me about I think one might say how his victims are healing. One of whom I actually talked to, and she'd been like going through therapy for quite a substantial period of time. And she is a this is the one who wrote an article. She's extremely talented. She herself is actually now writing a memoir about her experience.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Um, and the other one I was told like is only just getting back on her feet. She's only just now letting go. I'm like thinking to myself, it's been over 10 years and she's still not there.
Mm.
So that said a lot. That says a lot. But unfortunately, it
So
wasn't good
so
enough.
so it doesn't just have to be. And I'm not speaking to you. You
No
already know
problem.
this. I'm speaking to listeners. It doesn't just have to be, you know, torture like the
Mm-hmm.
Anthill Kids. It doesn't have to be like child brides like David Koresh or the guy we were talking about earlier.
Warren Jeffs.
Warren Jeffs, or the Alamos. It doesn't have to be anything like that. It can all be psychological,
Hmm.
and it does, and it doesn't, it's just like, you know, Al, you messaged me yesterday saying that my experience was more intense than yours,
Hmm.
and I just want to say right now that no, it's not, because it affects you to the point that it affects you
Hmm.
where you're at in it,
Yeah.
because it's just, you know I mean, this fucked you up,
Yeah.
obviously.
Oh yeah.
And and it's just like, I don't consider, just,
Hmm.
I wanted to make sure I told you that, while we were recording, because it's not, it's your case is every bit as, your situation was every bit as intense as mine. Mine
Mm.
went on for a lot longer,
Yes.
but but still, it just, it
Hmm.
it affected you personally. I mean, you're still going through, psychologically, some of the repercussions of some of the shit that you went through. I
Yeah.
am too.
Hmm.
And it's been freaking, since the, like, 1988, I think, is when the cult folded, after I had been in there for like 12 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And but still, I mean, yeah. So and I just wanted to say that, because
Mm.
it's like, when you sent that to me, I'm just like, no, I can't. And I just want to say that to anybody out there who might want to come on the show and tell their story. It's just like, just because
Mm.
you didn't go through what I did, you know what? My story might seem tame to, like, somebody from the that was in the Anthill Kids.
Mm.
You know, which, that is the absolute worst cult story that I've ever heard. And um, yeah, but is my experience any different? No, well, I didn't have a cult leader that liked to do freaking, like, hobbyist surgery experiments on me, but 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 still, it's just, I mean, there's no one cult experience that is more, that it's more intense, because at the time that it happens to you, or the
Mhm.
time that you realize it, it hits you like a ton of bricks. I don't care what you went through.
Definitely. Yeah.
So I just
Definitely.
wanted to say that. Don't ever say that again.
No, 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 no. I totally get it. No, it's not a competition of like the worst cult,
Right.
because everybody has their own story to tell and their own experience and their own healing means. I mean, um, and I and I think from because one thing that I remember you had mentioned this when we first chatted, how it's kind of like the more lesser known cults that have a lot of like really gruesome drama versus some of the ones that have become more well known, such as Heaven's Gate, People's Temple, the Branch Davidians, etc., etc. One thing I've learned in my
Well, those
years.
those were extreme exits.
Hmm. But one thing I've learned in all my years of studying cults is that a strong level of depression, death, and suicide plays a slightly, one might say, almost instrumental role in how cults come to a close.
Right.
Now,
I
like I
mean,
said,
yeah, I've said, I can't. I don't think I said this on episodes 10 and 11, but I've said it a lot since then.
mhm,
If you, the cult that I was raised in, Faith Assembly,
mhm,
they had satellites all over the world. If you combine the the deaths of people who died of preventable illnesses or injuries all together. I'm not talking about people that died of cancer or whatever, because that's not necessarily. I'm talking about people that died of, like, diabetes complications
mhm,
and stuff like that. People that got gangrene from a freaking injury or whatever that happened, or
mhm,
whatever. I'm lucky to have survived that. I don't know if you got to that point yet about the brown recluse spider that bit me in my armpit,
I
but
yeah, I heard that. I heard that. I was like, that's pretty gruesome.
yeah, I could have died from that. I could have been one of those numbers. But if
Mhm,
you combine all of the deaths from all of the satellites and the
mhm.
home location all around the world, you have a number that dwarfs Jonestown.
weeks. That says a lot.
Yeah.
That definitely says a lot. But I mean, like I said, one thing that followed me terribly, like an omen, was depression, and it was just depression. Being so isolated and not having anybody really to lean on because that was all I knew. That followed me everywhere.
Hmm.
And depression can suffocate the mind and do terrible, terrible things to you. And it pushed me to the brink of suicide. Um, I know that I'm not the only person who survived this group who had dark thoughts and stuff lingering in their mind, but everyone who has reconnected with me knows for a fact that I am the one who came the very closest to ending all that they had, to ending their life.
Yeah.
I was so isolated, lonely. I had nobody to lean on, no nothing. And I feel also that I was somewhat desperate for companionship because some of the people who I called friends or befriended when I went to college turned out to be really toxic people. And I feel now that the reason why I was willing to befriend people who were quite toxic was because there was a strong level of desperation in me for attention, for companionship, for having somebody by my side, because I'd lost all of the people, the closest thing I had to like family and friends.
Yeah,
Uh,
I get it.
and I made some just terrible, like, and being alone in college the way I was and not having a lot of support to lean on. There was the first attempt I made was I was, like I said, I came from a very turbulent home and stuff like that. Nothing I ever did in life was good enough for my father, and he really badgered me about my academics and my academic performance all throughout school. I cut him out of my life when I was 26 years old for my own well being and mental health, um, which is probably one of the smartest moves I've ever made in my life.
Right.
But he badgered me and really like howled at me, through my cell phone when I was in college. And I didn't do too hot and on a certain thing, and he exploded on me. I was very frustrated. I was filled with self hatred and had nobody to lean on in the moment. And I thought, you know what? Fuck this life. And I took a pair of scissors and I was going to slit my wrists and let them bleed out all over the floor. But want to know what saved me?
You met your you met the woman who you later married?
That's later. That will happen later on. No, in that attempt, what saved me was the movie Sophie's Choice, starring Meryl Streep.
Haven't seen it, but I know about it.
So in Sophie's Choice, spoiler alert for all of you who who have seen it and
Yeah,
maybe
skip
want to
forward 20 seconds.
Yes, spoiler alert. In the movie, when you meet Sophie early on, she has slit scars on her wrists, so it's evident that she had attempted suicide at one point, and that flashed through my head almost instantaneously, just like that. And I thought to myself, wait a second, Al, if you go through with this, fail, somebody saves you and stitches up those wrists of yours, when people look at you for the remainder of your life, they're not going to be looking at your face. They're going to see your wrists and have a whole different perception of you. You're going to deal with a level of very dark judgment for the rest of your life. Yeah, so the movie saved me. And it's interesting because, like I said, I still believed in Tom. I actually reached out to him after that, and this is such fucking hypocrisy on his end. He said it's not that you didn't have the strength to do it, it's that you had the strength not to do it.
Yeah, freaking gaslighting bullshit.
Bingo. Yeah. I thought he was really giving me sense of comfort at the time. But yeah, total gaslighting, absolutely. The second time was another kind of screw up, school anxiety, dad breathing fire down my throat. I had just been in a really turbulent economic situation that cost me some money to replace some very important equipment for school, and I was so angry and stuff. And I went to Fitchburg State University, and anybody who's ever been to Fitchburg, I can tell you this: people don't have a speed limit there. There is no speed limit. They just go like it's NASCAR
Hold
down
on
in
a second. Hold
Talladega.
on a second. Hold on a second. What?
How much longer is this gonna be? You don't even have your notes pulled up.
I don't. This is an interview. This isn't an episode.
Can you hurry up?
Can I'll be done when I'm done.
Oh my god.
Fucking teenagers.
Yeah, I've been told.
I'm 51, and I have sole custody of my almost 15-year-old teenage daughter.
I wish you good luck on your ventures, my friend. I wish you good luck. Yeah. I saw one of the guys who was going at least 60 something miles per hour, stepped out into the middle of the road, paused, thought, you know what? How about he kill me? He can hit me now. He can kill me. And as the headlights are like right within very close proximity, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? I ran. I booked it. Stuff like that. I mean, I even wrote my own will when I was 21, for cripe's sake. I was very much ready to kiss goodbye to the world I know and stuff. I wrote my own will. I told them, upon my death, I want to be cremated immediately. I want my urn to be buried because I don't want my family to have to like walk by every day and see an urn and be like, oh, that's my dead son in there, etc., etc. I wanted to be gone.
Yeah.
And the third and final attempt had a lot was more in regards to the fact that circles back to us being cut off from like relationships while Tom was having his on the inside. I got catfished through in a online dating website because, like I said, I knew nothing about dating. I really didn't under any
I've been
circumstances.
catfished before too.
I lost over $12,000.
Ooh, I wasn't catfished that bad.
I was so it's evident to me now that I was so desperate for romance in my life and desperate for companionship, and didn't really have a strong understanding of catfishing at the time, I might add. I know a lot more now about it, how it works and operates, than I did at that point. Like my mother and my sister, they actually tried to get me an arranged marriage, believe it or not.
Oh God.
And I'm not Muslim or Hindu or anything. They wanted me to join an epilepsy support group where they felt I could connect with other people who had it like me and stuff.
And there was this one girl in there that they happened to know, and they were steering you toward her.
Yeah, I figured out very quickly that their ultimate goal was he joins the group, he meets a girl who's just like him, and they'll fall in love. They'll marry her. Like it was. I hold that against them to this day. You wanted me to get an arranged marriage to an epileptic girl? Like, I explained to them, these groups are for people with terminal epilepsy, where they are incapable of being independent, where they live with their parents or caregivers. These are people who cannot drive, who cannot have a job. You are not their husband. You are their nurse. Support caregiver. Exactly. Like, no, I would have filed for divorce in 2 months and rigged it so that I inherited all her money or something. Like, that's not the way to go about it. But
No.
they pressured me to like get on to like eHarmony and stuff like that. And I got catfished through eHarmony, lost over $12,000. I had no support group, still at home with the turbulent family who was infuriated at me and just said, fuck it to the world. Absolutely fuck it. And this was right before Christmas, too. Went out, it was a blistering snowstorm. I mean, I live up here in the Northeast, in Massachusetts.
Yeah, it's really cold down here right now. I mean,
It's
We've got a brutal cold wave going on. It's 56 degrees
it's
out.
4 degrees where I live right now.
It's
It's
56. It's 56 out here, and like 56 to a Floridian
mm.
with humidity, like rain, feels like 4 degrees to you. I
Oh,
mean,
it's crazy as it sounds, I could go for 56 degrees. It was 12 degrees, but because I live right on the ocean,
ooh,
you have to substitute Atlantic wind chill from the equation, which
yeah.
means it drops 10 degrees.
The humidity and the wind on top of cold.
Mhm.
I mean, 56 with winds and like 100% humidity, like it is right now.
Mm.
It's supposed to get down into the 30s tonight, so it's supposed to drop 20
That's
something degrees.
I don't
But
even want to know what it's going to be like all tonight. All I know is that
with the wind chill is probably going to be down at like 15.
mhm.
And I had
Yeah.
to be up at 4 o'clock in the damn morning.
I have to be up that early too tomorrow. I do as well.
Yeah, but I'm
Work
a
is
Floridian. I'm not used to the shit.
gotcha. Good point. Good point. You're a Floridian. Yeah. But blistering snowstorm, and
I've been through all that because I'm a truck driver.
you've got
But
exactly, and you've got large trucks. Oof. And I had large trucks and snow plows going in front of my face, and I thought, okay, this is the moment. You've written your will. You've got it printed out. Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna ram skull first into that snowplow. That way, you crush your skull. You absolutely destroy your brain. There's no chance on God's green earth that they will be able to save you under any circumstances. End of life. This is it. And I was pinned in the position. And my mother, despite being brutally enraged at me because I just lost over $12,000, drives up and picked me up. I mean, I still really, really wanted to kill myself and still had so much self-hatred pulsating through my mind, the idea of suicide, etc. And it all of that is a result. It is very much a result of Tom.
oh yeah, I definitely get that. Um,
When and like I said, I had a wake up call when I started reconnecting with people. When I put A and B together and figured out I was the scapegoat. And everyone was saying the same thing. You are not to blame. This is not your fault. You have nothing to be sorry about. Everything is on Tom and his family.
right.
That was good of them, but it wasn't good enough for me. For me, I believed if you're going to get total closure, you have to hear it from Tom.
Yep. And I was gonna, if you didn't bring it up, I was going to. Have you had any, since you started speaking out about him, have you had any contact with him?
Oh, God. So Tom went off the grid around 2016, per se, because by that point, a lot had really surfaced. I didn't know too much about it at the time, of course, but a lot had really, really surfaced to the point where it was kind of important that he run and hide. So he kind of like sort of abandoned social media, became a ghost on Facebook, didn't ghost on Instagram, changed his phone number too, I might add. Very much run and hide. So I so I knew that finding him was not going to be easy. Now, I've had a lot of interesting nicknames throughout my lifetime. Al, Big Al, Speedy, like Speedy Gonzalez. But one of them is Sicario, if you know what that means.
I don't.
Sicario in Spanish means hired assassin. It's used
Oh,
primarily.
okay. Yeah, I did. There was a movie called Sicario back in the 80s.
One of my
okay.
favorites.
Yeah.
Sicario is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
And Josh Brolin. Sicario is used primarily in Mexico, Colombia, and parts of Venezuela, and it refers to hitmen for the drug lords. Now, where I get the title from, where I get that nickname from, is actually because of my work ethic. The code of a Sicario is this. You do what you're told, you go where you're sent, you work for whoever needs you to work for them, and you get the job done right. And that has been my work ethic for the past 16 years of my life. Like, I do the job. If you tell me to do it, I will get it done.
Right.
And Sicarios hunt men. This was when I truly was like a Sicario, like I have to hunt him. And what I did was I looked up Tom Locke online, went to Google, because Google is God. You can find just about anything on Google, ranging from steak recipes to pathetic porn. And his old website popped up. Now, his website seemed pretty out of date, like he hadn't used it in a while. So I'm like, this ain't going to work. And a YouTube video popped up for a company, some sort of like career coaching guidance company. And I saw his face, and I'm like, okay. So what I did was I contacted the company. I called them, and never underestimate somebody who can do voices and impersonations, because it can save your ass in the long run.
Oh,
and
definitely.
I told them, and I'm like, hey, look, I'm an Australian. Look, I came to Sydney a couple of years ago. I've been trying to make it big in the United States in media and television and movies and stuff, but I haven't had much luck. I heard about this guy who works for your company, Tom Locke. Here, he does really good work, mate. Do you think maybe you could have him give me a ring or something, or give me his email? And his boss bought it.
Nice.
He ate it. He ate it like a cupcake. Like, just, I'm thinking to myself, wow, you are a weak-minded fool, pal. Next day, Tom calls me. And, yep.
Bum, bum, bum.
And when he heard the sound of my voice, whoa. He was,
you should have gone at him with the Australian accent.
No, I wanted him to know. I wanted my
No,
presence
to
know.
start off with, and then you just drop the bomb on him after he's told you everything that you want to hear. Then you switch it up and be like, then you switch to the Boston accent.
No, I wanted. Here's the thing: I wanted him to know it was me. I wanted him to be well aware.
I get it 100%.
You can't hide anymore. I found you. And he had an extremely callous attitude. I started just grilling him and throwing it at him. Like, I nearly killed myself. I was pushed to the brink of suicide. I lost everything. I lost friends. You dated her. She was a minor, for fuck's sake. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? I just grilled him, etc., etc. And
nice.
Him, being the narcissistic manipulator he is.
But before you continue, you got what you had to say out.
Oh, yes.
So I freaking applaud you for that.
100%.
Hell yeah.
100%.
That's something I haven't been able to get.
I had to. I needed, hearing from him was going to be the ultimate closure for me. That was going to end this cycle. So what he did was he used that level of manipulation to like twist it around and stuff and make it look like it was nothing. He's like, no, we had a great relationship. We spent holidays together, Christmases together. I'm thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, you fucking bullshit POS. Like, shut the hell up.
Like our Christmas parties were you bitching us out about how much we sucked.
Yeah. But he had he was very, very callous. You couldn't sense any element of remorse or guilt within his voice at all. This was a very dark side of him that I had never known or knew could exist. I mean, I think when he unleashed the beast on us, like when he tapped into those raw emotions and made me cry the way he did. That was
the real Tom.
Exactly. So, and then he would just put on the facade of being Tom, the acting coach. So this was like new to me, but I've taken so many psychology and sociology courses that I understood exactly this is the reality. This is the man you trusted. This man is a complete psychopath. Narcissistic, controlling, no remorse, is
pedophile.
not afraid under any circumstances to engage in pedophilia.
Yeah.
Like,
we both said it.
I was led by a psychopath. And I really did try to pull out him like an apology or confession.
But you ain't gonna get that.
Exactly. No, I will never get apology. I didn't get an apology, but what I got was
because they don't think they've done anything wrong.
correct.
That's the thing. They in
Exactly
their freaking
100%.
mind. And I'll tell you what. After I recorded episodes 10 and 11,
Mhm.
at the end of episode 11, I said I'm going to send these 2 episodes to Steve Hill, the guy that took over for Hobart Freeman after he died,
Mhm.
and I did.
Um,
Think I heard anything back?
nope.
Nope.
Well, here's the
he
kicker.
got he got it. He got it, and I know he did because I got told by somebody else that that he knows who I am.
Mm.
So
Well, me.
so somewhat mission accomplished, but not as much as I would like.
I definitely see it. Yeah, but you could hear he tried so desperately to hide it, but I could hear a very strong sense of fear in his voice that he was trying so desperately to hide. He was scared because he'd been spending all these years hiding and running and putting up guardrails online, making sure that his social media was very much closed up and stuff like that, and changing his phone number. So for somebody to find him, that was like a big, it was my way of saying, you think I can find you like this? Don't underestimate if I show up at your doorstep one day and
Yeah.
knock on your front door. And me, speaking of what you did with Hobart Freeman, so I'm friends with Tom's wife on Facebook. And yes, interesting. Yes, the marriage I'm responsible for. And she, based on the fact that
I'm sorry. I'm loving this. I know I'm loving this more than the majority of our listeners that are listening to this right now. But the ones who do understand, they're loving it too. I guarantee it.
oh yeah, so I haven't done it because I guess as I like to put it, a
Well,
level of moral.
she's a pawn.
Yeah, so his wife, who it's evident to me 100% that she has no knowledge as to what he did and who he truly is, because if not, they still wouldn't be married for like 10, they still wouldn't be married anymore under any circumstances. But I have access to all of the podcasts I've been on, all of the articles that have been written about him. So in the back of my mind, there's this strong feeling that sending all of that to her is the right thing to do. I'll end a marriage. He'll lose custody of his kids.
Oh, he's got kids with this woman?
Yeah, he's got 2
sucks.
kids with this woman. Most likely be investigated by the police. But at the same time, I can get closure for 20-something odd people, including myself.
Yeah.
I have not done it. Do I think about it a lot? Fuck yeah, I do. But have I chosen not to do it? No, I have not. Because I know that doing that probably puts me in a very similar league as Tom.
Say that again?
Because for me, I feel that me doing that, like I stick to my gut and having a consciousness and strong moral values. I feel that I'd be betraying moral values by doing that.
Yeah, it would kind of you kind of be stooping to his level.
Exactly. That's the thing. That's what stops me. I'm like, I feel like I'd be stooping to his level, and that's not me. So instead,
yeah, you have gotten to confront him.
Correct. Yes.
And that's more than most cult survivors will ever get.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
yes.
Yeah, and you know what? It sucks to look at it this way, but she's gonna figure it out eventually.
Probably sooner than one thinks. Like I said, one of his victims, who's an acclaimed author, who's an acclaimed writer, is writing a memoir about her experience, and there's not a doubt in my mind she's going to disclose his name and everything. And right. Me, so what I do when I'm not doing my podcast or getting like videography gigs and stuff, I do screenwriting. And I am currently, I kind of had to put it on hold. I'm writing a screenplay for a film inspired by my cult experience and everything that myself and everybody went through. I have put it on hiatus temporarily for now because it's such a deeply personal story, not just to myself, but to many other people. I feel compelled that I'd like to communicate with a few of them and kind of hear some testimony and run it by them and kind of like get their insight before I proceed any further, because I don't want to like write this script. I'm connecting with producers and people with at Boston Casting, etc. I don't want to like give them all the needs, all the goods they need to make this into a feature film, and then they see like it on the silver screen and it's like, you didn't tell us? Like, that was personal. I don't
Yeah,
want
I
to
get
be
it.
that
I get
guy.
it.
So I put that script on hiatus. I'm currently writing a screenplay for a film about the drug wars. Um, I watch a little too much true crime.
Careful with the cartels, man.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would say steer away from that. I will not cover a cartel case.
This is more about the human element. This is told from a very human element, more from the angle of somebody who's just been stuck in the game and doesn't know how to get out.
Okay.
That angle. Yeah. Yeah.
I won't even cover like El Chapo or Pablo Escobar,
Mm,
even though those things are so, those things have been done to death by TV, by podcast, by everything. I ain't gonna touch them
oh
because
yeah, yeah. I totally get it. 100%
yeah,
understanding and
I've
stuff.
had I've had something blow up in my face before on this podcast, and
Ooh, yeah.
that kind of opened my eyes. So like I might want to be more selective about what I
Hmm.
do.
Yeah. So trust me, I am a very cautious person, stuff like that, and I will talk with them in great detail and depth about how far I've come along with the story, and kind of I'd like to just maybe just interview all of them and in a sitting and kind of record it so that I can really put together and make it
Source
as
material.
true, exactly, source material, so that's true and honest as possible, and so that I'm not offensive to them in any way, because here's the thing.
Your movie won't say these that this is this is written about, based on actual events.
Hmm.
Yours is going to say this is a depiction of actual events.
Yeah. Yes,
So,
because
and
I,
that's the right way to do it. You're doing it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
you're doing
yeah,
it right.
yeah.
So,
I can't, I don't want to hurt them. They've already been hurt.
right.
Because here's the
So
thing. I I I don't owe Tom anything, but I do owe him.
you owe him.
What I owe him, I would not be where I am today had I not made the decisions that I had made then. And it deeply came at a desperate price. I've nearly killed myself 3 times. Had it not been for my wife, she was my saving angel. She was my saving grace. Had it not been for my wife, I most likely truly would have gone through with that third attempt at suicide, and people would have had to bury me back in December of 2019. So I
Yeah,
owe her my life. But what I owe Tom is the fact that
a boot
one
in his
thing.
ass.
What I owe him is, of course, the credits he's been able to give me that have helped me to garner attention from like casting directors, etc., etc. Those performances, those highs. And also, what I owe him is the fact that you have given me a purpose to be a vocalist, to be open and tell the truth about the cult world, its existence.
That
The
comes with a
way I
cost, though.
the
It
way
comes
I
with a
just
cost.
the way I describe my story and my experience is that I experienced the Weinstein scandal before the Weinstein scandal even existed. Like, I learned about the Hollywood underworld when I was learning about the Hollywood underworld when I was 14, before the media even really got their hands on it and was
Right.
talking about it and stuff. So one thing that I owe him is, okay, you taught me what to avoid when it comes to show business.
Yeah.
But what he owes me is, because there's one
Closure.
thing, yes, closure, and also like he probably the one thing that destroyed me, that he ever did to destroy me, was he contributed to heartbreak, a great deal of heartbreak that suffocated my life for the longest period of time. Like I said, everything that existed within that cult, friends, relationships, dating, etc. And you coming from a religious cult background, I'm sure you resonate with that. Like everybody is
Yeah.
friends with one another, everyone marries one another, etc., etc.
Oh, we didn't get to that, thankfully, in my experience. But I mean, I'm sure that if it hadn't folded, it would have happened.
Yeah, but I'm happily married now to a woman who I love dearly more than anything else. But there was at one point another woman. Um, she was my best friend, but also I kept it. We both kept it locked up because we were only 15 years old and we were
Yeah.
timid and didn't really know how to approach one another. We were also lovers, hidden lovers, and forces beyond our control. I'd have to say on both sides of the equation, hers as well as mine, stepped in and prevented us from actually like being together, from having any sort of fate or future that we truly could have had and better yet deserved. I'll never
Yeah,
forget the day I lost her.
but
It
at the same
was
time, at the same time, that happens with teenagers all the time. Parents step in and be like, "Now I'm putting my foot down," and in
Tom.
a lot of
Tom
cases,
actually was kind of one of the people who did contribute to this destruction.
oh, you called it? You called it off?
No, he kind of, so she was dealing with a lot of her own personal family turbulence while I'm dealing with my own. And Tom knew about how that family turbulence was affecting her life in a very. You okay, man?
Yeah. Hold on. I took a deep breath with beer in my mouth.
Gotta cleanse the palate. But he knew about.
Hold on. Okay. Start over with he knew.
Okay, so he knew. So he knew how we felt about one another. He absolutely knew, because here's the thing, like I said, she was my best friend more than anything else, but we were also secretly like deeply, deeply in love. And I'll never forget the day she left. This actually refers to the play where I dropped the F-bomb accidentally and he gaslighted me like there was no tomorrow. We had just finished casting for it and everything, and when she got her role, I don't know why it was, but something triggered a spark in her, and she just burst into tears, like sadness that I'd never seen her display in all my years of knowing her. She marched out of the studio. Tom yelled at her, which was extremely inconsiderate and cruel of him. I feel like I should have. Part of me wanted to pursue her, but another part of me was unsure what to do, because, of course, there was a certain element of fear, and Tom was good at controlling people. And that was the last time I saw her.
Yeah, so
And
she just bolted from the group.
and she moved across country out to the
Damn.
Midwest, and that and here's the kicker. So everyone, not just within.
Have you told your wife this story?
What?
Have you told your wife this
She
story?
knows about her. She knows
Okay,
about her.
I was just wondering.
Yeah, she knows about her. She knows about her existence and stuff like that. Um, and um, and yeah, and what happened was after she left, we started following, myself and the group members. Actually, the entire school started following her on social media. For me and the group members, we were following her as a means to kind of see how, if she was okay, if she was safe, if she was coping with whatever troubles it was. And she changed a lot. We saw photos of her that kind of like made us raise our eyebrows a bit. I remember she cut off like all of her hair, and she had like beautiful long hair and stuff. And that kind of, I don't want to say it hurt me per se, but it felt weird because I'm like, that's not her. That's not
Right.
her.
I'm gonna know
And
it's her now.
yeah, no, I know for a fact that she grew her hair back out again, etc.
Oh, that's good.
And everybody in school, you see, in the eyes of the public, we were not best friends. They looked at us as a couple, even though we never dated, we never had a relationship or anything. We kept that locked up inside. We kept that locked up inside. We were so timid and scared, and we both had the same feeling of I'm not good enough for you. That was something that we both shared, that we didn't feel we were good enough for one another.
Well, that was
And that,
something that that was something that Tom was instilling in all of
oh
you
yeah,
to to just, I mean, what if Tom had wanted her?
oh my god,
He's keeping everybody from hooking up while isolating everybody from everybody else, just in case he wants to have his pick of the litter.
I would have snapped his neck. I would have
Yeah,
snapped his
but
neck because
still,
he knew how I felt.
but
He
still,
knew.
think about that David Koresh follower that I just told you
Yep.
about earlier with his guitar.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Hell, think about that scene in Sons of Anarchy where this guy hooks up with with this girl, and then the leader takes her right in front of him into the bedroom and plows her. I mean that's what
Yeah.
this is. I
Yeah.
mean
And
that's what he was doing. Luckily for everybody involved, it didn't get to that point, but that's what he was doing. He was wanting to have all the women not attached to anybody else in the group that he had isolated. He was full. He had the next step of being like a destructive cult leader, already in hand.
yeah.
He had the plans ready.
Yeah.
And thank God it blew up in his face. Otherwise, it would have been like a freaking sex cult and all that stuff with him with a freaking harem.
Ooh.
I'm
And I
telling you
saw the
that
movie Midsommar, and watching that orgy scene, whoa.
I haven't seen that movie yet.
If you want to, if you want to see movies about cults that can give you a good shock factor, like
But isn't
really
that movie
trigger
isn't that
flashbacks.
movie like in a different language?
No, it's in English, and only part of it is in Swedish.
Oh, okay. I might watch
It's
it then.
mostly in English. Yeah. That one, I watched that. That was probably one of the most disturbing films I'd seen, because being a cult survivor, like, it triggered a lot of blowback. But so much taunting happened. Like, people were spreading heinous, awful, god awful rumors about her, and of course those rumors circled back to me because of how the public perceived us. So I had to take all of this.
I'm telling you,
heat.
he was setting himself up to have a harem. He totally was.
And I can remember, and here's the thing, he was not afraid to contribute to that group of people, that big social group that was chastising me, hurting me, taunting me, mocking me like there was no tomorrow. I remember I was this is probably one of the most hurtful things, the lowest he sank in the entirety of his life, or at least to me, towards me. My experience was I was doing a monologue and I wasn't doing too well. I think it had to do with something romantic. I can't remember. And he started slowly spelling her name out. It was like D-E-V. And I'm like, stop, don't stop. And I'm like trying to keep myself together, but I can't. And I couldn't, because it hurt so
Fuck
much,
this guy,
because
man.
that was a bullet to the heart. That's like, that's playing fire and gasoline. And I think some of the others got him to cool down. But me, I was falling apart. Like, it was too much for me to handle. And I do feel that a lot of the group members kind of tried to hint to me that it was time for me to move on and I needed to let go. But they eventually quit. And I realized that on my own, that they came to the understanding. They're like, he loves her. We can't attempt at breaking his heart. We can't force him to kind of end everything, give up and quit. he's going to have to discover it on his own. He needs to let go on his own.
Right.
So so they just stopped hinting at me, and in time, um, I healed. We eventually did reconnect. Uh,
Oh, that's good.
12 years later. 12 years later, and by God, life had changed so much on both our sides. And that was when we finally had that openness, and the truth came out, and everything that I wish I feel that I should have known. I don't want to say that I deserve to know, because obviously it was her own personal issues, but at the same time, I cared about her so deeply and wanted her to be safe and okay and to be happy and to be loved, because as everybody knew, like, it was her best friend and her secret and her hidden lover at the same time. She's my best friend and my kind of secret lover at the same time. Like, I felt that people would maybe be obligated to at least maybe say something to me, that they should
Right.
let me know like how she is doing, because I cared so deeply about her. Everything spilled out. And we kind of just vented everything that we needed to know, and finally confessed the truth. I loved you. I always loved you. And she was like, I always loved you too. And that was a beautiful, somber moment, to officially get that closure. Because I think before that, the closest thing to ever having.
You just wanted to know. You just
Yeah.
wanted to know if your feelings were returned.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And they were 100%. She was the same way. She, young, timid, didn't think you're good enough, when reality, in my mind, she was perfect. She was remarkable and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons why I fell in love with my wife, I mean, there's 1,000 reasons why and stuff like that. But I think it does circle back to that love that was lost, is that my wife is my best friend, the person I want to do everything with, who I want to go to movies with, who I want to party with, who I want to have a good time with, who I want to dance with, who I want to laugh with. And when the person you love more than anything is your best friend, like, it's how it was then. It's how it is now. So I feel like
Well,
I saw
well,
a
yeah.
lot of very strong elements similar to how I felt back then within my wife.
Well, there you go. I mean, one door closes, another one
Yeah.
opens.
And
You know,
I feel, I really feel god awful and kind of hate myself that I wasn't there for her the way she really needed to
I
maybe.
think we all have. I think we all have that one from years back
Mm,
where we're just like, what what if?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think we all have that,
And I
but you're
know, I know exactly where our life would be now, had, like, we been able to prevent those forces, had I intervened, had I stepped in, had I gotten up the courage to stand up to Tom and be like, just let me know, the fucking truth, you piece of shit. Had I
yeah.
stepped up and gotten the truth out, I know that I could have done something. I know deep inside my heart of hearts that I could have.
But you're not. But the thing is, you're not gonna do that when you're in it.
No.
When you're in quicksand, you're not gonna sit back and say, "Hey, why am I in quicksand?"
Yeah.
You're gonna just try to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
And and it's just like the whole time that I was in this, for whatever reason, I had this ability to critically think as a child,
Mm.
and that's why I went through freaking hell. I mean, I've talked, I've that's why it was so much worse for me, because I'm questioning things, and
Mm-hmm.
you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
You're supposed, it's just, you're questioning God. No, I'm not. I'm questioning this person up here pretending to be God.
Yeah.
But I didn't put that together until much later. But
Mm.
still, I was questioning as a kid. I was just like, you know, I'd talk to friends. Well, the church made my parents get divorced, but And they'd be like, well, we go to church. My parents are married. My parents had, my mom had a husband before she met my dad. I started piecing these together when I was in second and third grade.
Wow.
You know, so I was fighting this fight and I didn't even freaking realize it.
Mm.
And it's just, it sucks that it took me so freaking long to really make the connection. I mean, I didn't make the connection until I was like 19, just hanging out with a buddy and just telling about the church and all that stuff. He's just like, that wasn't a church, that was a cult.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
What?
The fact that it took me until the age of like 28 to realize the terrible truth, that was just a lot. And, I mean, but yeah, my biggest hatred towards Tom will always be that he was willing to break my heart just so that he could get his satisfaction in whatever way it was. I will always hold that against him. Of
Yeah.
course, I'm happily married now. I love my wife more than anything.
Well, yeah,
But that part,
you took a break from this podcast to go get her get her something to eat.
oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
But that
I'm just
part,
like, that's awesome.
but that love part, it's always going to be in here. It's always deep inside my heart. I'm never going to let go of it because that was probably the most glorious element of it. That was the most beautiful thing about it. I don't think, frankly, when I look back on it, some of the performances and stuff were more of a perk. I mean, yeah, they were high, but that moment, that time we had together, I've never let go of it. It's in my heart now. It stays there. I keep it locked up, and I don't want to let it go. I don't. I mean, I think the
Well,
most beautiful
it's so
moment. I
it's
remember
so
the most beautiful moment we had because, like I said, we did everything together, including group members. It was one of the group members. It was our Sweet 16,
well.
and
I'll tell you one thing. It's okay to let it go.
oh yeah, yeah,
Don't ever forget it. But it's
mhm.
okay to let it go. It's okay
Yes, yeah,
to let it release it from you
yes,
because
yeah.
you are happy with where you are now.
Yes. So I
So
kind of I cherish the
to
memories. I
to
cherish the
dwell on
memories.
it is unfair to your wife.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. So I've definitely, but which is why it's also one of the reasons why I go on like one of the reasons I've gone on podcasts and stuff like that. And like I said, I'm the only male member of the group who has actually spoken out to the level I have. But it became very much my mission to not just heal myself, but help everyone else heal, to
Yeah.
bring awareness and bring light to what we went through, to shed light on the sick inner workings of child stardom, youth fame, what that does to you, what it can trigger to you. According to statistics, people who experience fame at a very young age are doomed to lose 14 years of their life. Like it shortens your lifespan by 14 years. So
Makes
that kind
sense.
of became my mission, was to finally be a voice. I'm now a hero. I don't consider myself their knight in shining armor. I consider myself the guy who at one point was this timid, insecure kid with glasses and crew cut hair, to step up and be a grown man who has contacts and 1980s hockey hair now and let our
Well,
story.
I used to have hair down to my waist, and you
Oh,
see what I look like now.
oh yeah, and just let it out and let the truth be told. Be respectful towards all of them, and kind of just this mission. It's my mission of closure for everyone, for awareness. That's why I've become so vocal about it. Is like I found a certain level of purpose from that.
And
That
you know what?
was.
You're in the same boat as I am.
Mhm.
You really are. And I'm glad that you know. I mean, it was this was a very interesting story. I mean, I was just like I was like emotionally involved with it.
Yeah.
And and like I said earlier, it doesn't matter what somebody went through. All cult survivors have been through fucking hell.
Yeah.
And and it's just for you to be stepping up, doing this as a cult survivor. You have your own podcast. That, that's like, I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So for these days, what I try to do is I try to hold on to like the precious memories, like the golden moments, and not let the trauma kind of destroy me, because I lived it. I lived what the experience of what happens when you let the trauma destroy you, and I've nearly killed myself 3 times. Yet I'm still alive and breathing. I mean, I didn't even expect to see the age of 30. I truly expected to be dead by 27. Uh, like James Dean. But no, here I am alive and kicking, and I very much have, thanks to the love, support, and guidance from my wife, and being vocal on other podcasts, such as Was I in a Cult and Trust Me, and now this one. It's helped me to definitely pave the road forward and focus more on the present and the good times that are to come, rather than let the past kind of follow me everywhere they go.
right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. Well, obviously I'm all for it, but I'm just doing the same damn thing. But, but, you have a podcast of your own?
Yes,
What is it?
I have a podcast called Chatterbox, where I talk about movies, mayhem, and millennial madness. A lot of people I interview are kind of media junkies like myself. A friend of mine who's a writer. I give like movie reviews and opinions about about what's the latest movie. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it terrible? And stuff like that. So yeah, I kind of talk a lot about that. I'm an encyclopedia when it comes to film, so I got a lot of fun facts about movies that most people might consider to be worthless knowledge, but I consider it to be valuable knowledge.
Oh, I'm right there with you. Yeah, we'll link that, and we'll also link the episodes that you've been on podcasts like Trust Me, and what was the other one?
Was I in a Cult?
Was I in a Cult? Yeah, I know about them. I've never really listened to them,
Mm-hmm.
but I do know that they exist.
Yes,
I know they've both been around longer than I have, and I'm pushing 3 years. So, so
Yeah.
so yeah, Al, it was great having you on. It was very enlightening, and honestly, you are only the second cult survivor that I've no, the third cult survivor that I've actually had on the show. So, yeah, it's just like I've talked to a lot of cult survivors. A lot of them just prefer to talk to me. They don't want to come on the air, and that's fine too. That's okay as well. but, but that was it was a great story, and thanks again for coming on. Check out his podcast, Chatterbox, and YouTube and all the platforms.
Spotify and YouTube. I'm still battling with Apple Podcasts to get it on there. Curse you, Steve Jobs.
I know your pain. I don't think we got onto Apple with CKCB until like episode 12 or something like that.
Wow.
And we submitted it like after we released episode 1. So, but anyway, thanks for listening, everybody. Be sure to check us out, on YouTube, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, on Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Like, review, share. Do the same thing for Chatterbox. And until next time, later.
Adios, folks.